So, Zach, before we start the show this week, we're going to do that thing that's become, sadly, a common occurrence for us when someone passes away is have a quick little moment of reflection before we start the show to commemorate the passing of Niki Lauda. How did you hear about it, and what were your feelings when you heard about it?
It was sad, obviously, and it seemed somewhat surprising. Although we knew he had been recently unwell, it feels like all of the Formula One related deaths always seem to kind of come out of the blue because it's a big traveling circus. But I really was it warmed my heart the amount of love that was outpoured for him, for a man who can be quite austere and quite straightforward. His dry sense of humor was something that I always really liked, and I always really enjoyed whenever there was an interview with him or just his his unbounding love for the sport. It was really, really, really lovely. And I think we're all definitely going to miss Niki. And I especially loved the things like the Mercedes halo being in red and the red cap brigade. And, it was terrific. How about you?
Yeah, very much the same. It's awkward to hear about it before the Monaco Grand Prix, which is obviously one of the sort of more historic races. And he's obviously someone from the history of the sport and doesn't really, it's never a good thing. It's never a good time to hear that someone's passed away, but of all the times, it had to be the week of this, one of the prestigious party races, and can't really have a party race when someone like that has passed away. It was touching to see the drivers all huddle around the helmet before the race as well, and everyone had lots of really positive things to say about the man. I think everyone's reflecting on his character. He's absolute no nonsense, no bullshit approach to everything that he did, and his results speak for themselves. He's come back as one of the best that sport, capital S, has ever seen. There was a thing going around that I wanted to just quickly read. This is something that was published for the Formula One website, and it's someone writing a eulogy for him, and it's basically recapping just after he had his sort of comeback press conference after the accident where he was scarred and disfigured. And basically, this is him at the press conference. It says, later he was questioned by a journalist he thought he recognized. "I know you, don't I?" he asked. "I don't think so," the journalist replied. But Lauda, the computer, read his memory bank and recalled how cruel the man had been when he was vulnerable during the first press conference he made after his accident, when people saw for the first time the ravaged and scarred image he would forever present to the world. "I remember," Lauda said. "You're the guy who asked me what my wife would do now that I was ugly." Raising his fresh won trophy, he pointed at it, and being the miscreant, he said, "Well, you can shove this up your ass." So, yeah, what's not to like? What is not to like, and what a loss.
Yeah, it's that little cheeky grin, I think, a lot of the time, which he almost, every time he was asked a question, I felt like he had almost calculated an answer in his head and then was judging whether this was the right forum or not to say it. Live TV on Sky Sports or being televised globally or something like that. I could just imagine what his relationship's like, especially inside Mercedes in these last few years, and you could tell that the relationship he had with Lewis Hamilton must have been incredibly dry and fun and really engaging. So he'll be sorely missed.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Well, I guess we better get into the show. Let's start now. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Super License F1 podcast. My name is Rodney.
My name is Zach.
Good to be talking to you, Zach, for this relaxed weekender edition of the Super License podcast covering the Monaco Grand Prix. You're one of your favourites. Is it still one of your favourites?
It is still one of my favourites, even though it doesn't have an Australian winning it all the time like it seemingly used to. But it is something that we tend to perform above our pay grade at. It seems like swimming and like rugby, we have no right winning this Monaco Grand Prix. And yet Australians seem to somehow manage to pull it off. Rod, I was in Scotland for the race this weekend. Unfortunately, not in Monaco to miss the race like I usually would when travelling, but I did manage to catch enough of it on my iPad while sitting next to a fire that I myself had lit for the first time in my entire life. I made fire using my bare hands. Yeah, exactly. I felt like at the ripe old age of 31 that I should probably give it a try. And with a little bit of words of encouragement from my good friend and some very dry wood and some matches, I managed to make it work. Oh, and the help of some newspaper.
With
so
just some
I'm feeling
dry
very
wood
good.
and matches. I made fire. Congrats, mate. That's a great achievement. Well done.
Thank you so much.
I remember staying in a cabin out in the Grampians one time where there was electricity, but no heating, no hot water, unless you actually lit a fire. So, yeah, it became a very common occurrence.
You got very, very good at it. I know who to call now, which is you, if I can't rely upon my own skills.
Mm-hmm. Yep, call upon me, and I'll call upon my friend who I asked to do pretty much everything as well. Well,
got to have that friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear that you had a little break in Scotland. I don't know if you mentioned that, or were we talking about that before we recorded? We were in Scotland. Very jealous, because that's obviously way back, generations and generations back, where my clan are from, and it's a place I'd love to go one day and sip a few Scottish whiskies in the
a couple of drams.
Yes, a couple of drams. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, I'd like to go one day. That's really good. It's on the list.
Keep it on the list. And if you haven't gone, everybody should go. And I can highly recommend it. A lot of driving, though. A lot of driving. I
was at the supermarket the other day, and they have released new chocolates in all kinds of weird flavors. And I was just like, man, we're not doing the snack segment anymore, but you've been traveling. There's amazing snacks out. It's just trying to pull me back in, but no, we won't. So, Zach, we have the Monaco Grand Prix to cover. We're going to do Super Quiz later, and we've got the Fantasy League to recover. So it's a bit of a no-surprise effort from us this week, as you would expect on your weekend. And hopefully we're just going to be rocking and rolling through this Monaco recap and having a little bit of fun on the way. So if you're ready for the race recap, maybe we'll just kick straight into Overdrive.
Yeah, try the Overdrive button. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted you to press that one. Give it a go.
Let's see what happens.
Let us race a bit. I gave him space.
Suck my balls, mate.
Let's hurry up and get out of here. We got a race to do.
Same as the race intro theme. That doesn't matter. That's okay. I've always felt that had undercurrents of overdrive to it. Yeah, Monaco Grand Prix. It's one of those weekends where everyone that you work with who's casually interested in Formula One starts to give you the raised eyebrows, like, "Hey, Monaco," and then they go, "Should I watch this one?" And you go, "It starts at 11:15." They're like, "Ugh, maybe not on a weeknight, on a school night. Are you kidding? No." But the highlights get passed around, and, well, maybe there weren't so many highlights this weekend. But, yeah, Zach, we usually kick off our race recap with a 30-second high-pressure, high-octane, overdrive guaranteed recap. Yeah. It's my turn in the rotation, so I guess you can just sit back and sit pretty and relax and rest your vocal cords for the next 30 seconds or so.
Do some visual. I'll just do some warm-ups, I guess, for when it's my turn to talk again. Just the me's and Formula One, red leather, yellow leather.
Yes, that's it.
Max Verstappen, Nico Hülkenberg.
Keep the energy
They're
going.
my warm-ups.
Keep yourself primed for when I finish this. But yeah, I'm trying to think of a metric that, like, when I'm finished, you can tell me how good or bad I did. How many... it's a Monaco-related thing.
Casino, gins, jackets. How many...
jackets? Where does jackets fit in?
Well, sports coats. Jackets. A nice jacket to wear to the casino. They don't let you in unless you're wearing one, right?
Yeah, I guess everywhere you go, you have to wear a jacket, right? How about this?
Of course,
How about I give you a 30-second recap, and at the end of it, you tell me if I'm suitably dressed for admittance into a high-profile place venue.
On a range of casual.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Okay,
right.
fine.
Here we go. 30-second race recap. Just to remind everyone, this has gone off the rails a little bit. 30-second race recap of Monaco starting right now. One of the big stories was Charles Leclerc, who got screwed over in qualifying and then had a big hissy fit in the car and basically threw his race away. He could have been could have been a contender, could have been in the points, but it just wasn't to be. Hamilton won at Leicester Flag after they left him out on, well, less durable tyres than the others, and he had a big meltdown in the car on the radio complaining. Rounding out the podium, Vettel and Bottas. Max Verstappen scored a penalty for crashing into Bottas in the pits, which meant he threw away a podium himself, but it doesn't matter.
All right. I'm going to say that was so succinct and just so clean. Maybe tuxedo? Like, I would say you're allowed in, and that's a tuxedo level. Like, it was very straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you brought a huge amount of, there was no...
Yeah.
I'm not saying you there was like too much personal flair in there, but it was exactly like you could have gotten away with much worse, but you came in a tuxedo, black bow tie and everything, and it was like I'm here to win some games and steal some hearts.
I see what you're saying. You're saying I made it through the gates, but you're saying I'm not necessarily like turning heads as I walk in.
No, you're not peacocking. Okay. Like well, you haven't got a cane, like you haven't got an ivory cane that you're swirling around as well.
I thought the intro was missing something. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, and now I'm realizing. Speaking of peacocking and turning heads, it's time for my Monaco intro. Zach, grab your briefcase of unmarked notes. We're flying first class to Monte Carlo. Soak up the glitz, the glamour, and other words that start with gl. See if you can spot the difference between the fake harbour and the real one. Hey, paint some boats on there next time, you clowns. With the curbs just inches away, the drivers slice and dice through all 16 corners. It's the closest that F1 gets to riding a razor scooter down the lane of a bowling alley at 200 kilometers per hour, and that's without the bumpers. It's too tight, can't slow down. Losing my lead, driven round and round. I'm at the hairpin now. And don't listen to anyone that says that Nico parked it there in qualifying 2014. He's just not good enough to have done that. It's time for the race that actually does have Prince Albert in the can, so let's march to Monaco, baby.
Oh man, that was. I mean, I said that you didn't bring necessarily too much personal flair, but that was the ivory cane. That was the. I'm going to say the bright green top hat, and that was on the inside of your jacket. The inner lining was maybe like a purple, possibly.
That's how I roll.
That was right up there.
I don't want to like peek as I'm walking in the door. I wait until the right time, and then when the DJ gives me the signal, that's when I peek.
It's when you. It's not until you sit down at the bar that your bright pink socks have been revealed as your trouser legs recede up your knees.
I like that. Well, I put a lot of effort into that, and I like your analogy that is equivalent to wearing pink socks and a tuxedo. Well, I've never worn that, but maybe I'll give it a go one day. Zach, what did you think of the Lewis Hamilton win? Do you think it was the most glorious, the most hardest fought race that he's ever ran, as he said? Or was it always in the bag? Did he have it under control? Was he just, getting on the radio and maybe putting pressure on himself and using the radio as a bit of a pressure release valve?
That is interesting, right? Because he was just essentially just complaining and maybe a little bit of stacking the deck in his favour so that if it didn't come off, he could blame the team, which is not really like the Lewis Hamilton we've seen, I would say, in the last kind of year. I really feel like he's been far more reasonable on the radio. He does get a little bit annoyed when he sees other people on a different tyre strategy. He's like, that one looked good. Can't I be on that one? And they're like, just race your race, mate. And he's like, okay, fine. But if it all goes pear-shaped, you know who was right. He does want his cake and eat it too a lot of the time. But take nothing away from the drive. You see the slow-mos of his tyres on like lap 60, and you're like, those are about to explode, those tyres. They're so badly worn. And then to make it to the end, the one overtaking opportunity for Max Verstappen was pretty poor. Like, he stuck it down the inside, and even him on the radio, even Max on the radio was like, I tried to overtake him and he just kind of ran me off the road. It was very lackluster. Not the usual, like, what the fuck? Everything's broken.
Like, when
disqualify
the slips
that
go
man.
up for an appeal and it's pretty half-hearted, you just know they're going up because the keeper went up.
Yeah, exactly. You just kind of meant to. So that was sloppy. Well-deserved win for Lewis Hamilton. Turned it on during qualifying when it didn't necessarily look like he was going to pull one out of the bag, and Bottas was looking pretty strong. And it does just show you, though, it's so bloody difficult to overtake around Monaco. I have a new gear to grind, Rod, which is that the cars are too big. That's it. That's it for me. I think that needs to change. The cars are so massive now that you can't do anything. You can't get round the inside. There's just not enough room because everybody's so long. The turning circles aren't that great on the cars. So it just makes it incredibly difficult, not just to get alongside someone, but to get through little gaps. When Ayrton Senna would say you've got to keep going for that gap regardless. I don't think the gaps are very big anymore, especially around these tiny tracks like Monaco. And when you do manage to squeeze your cars through, like Charles Leclerc did, you need a very, very, very open-minded, giving and forgiving teammate, or not teammate, racing colleague, let's say, when you say overtaking Giovinazzi, who's in your sister team or B team, or even when he ran around the inside of, was it maybe one of the Force Indias? I can't remember, Racing Points. Whoever he overtook first, Charles Leclerc, he was left a lot of room, which he's just not going to get from other races. So Yeah, make the cars smaller, Rod, which they're never going to do. They'll never get smaller. In fact, they'll probably just get bigger, which is a shame.
So I have an idea what we should do. The cars are currently 2 meters wide. Let's make the cars 3 meters wide, and then let's not race at Monaco. How about that?
Oof, yeah, that'll do.
Ouch.
And we could just race at Herman Tilke circuits there because the runoff zones are amazing. And I don't know. What do you think?
I think Monaco has not been easy to overtake for the last 50 years or so. It's not the case of the cars getting 20 centimeters wider this year than last year. It's never been easy. You can always do it.
No, they're too long.
There's always some people who, they pull a few overtakes and everyone says, see, who says you can't overtake at Monaco? I'm sure the social media people have those, tweets drafted on Wednesday and, they just post them out on Monday. But, I don't know. Monaco is just such a problematic circuit that to come away and say, oh man, no one could overtake there. It's like, yeah, newsflash, breaking, no one can overtake at Monaco. So coming back to the Lewis Hamilton thing, after last year's issue that Daniel Ricciardo had, and he still won despite being, I don't even know, like he had half a car or something. It just seemed like a little bit of the same old stuff where like the leader's in the lead has a problem, should be exciting, but it isn't because Monaco. So I know that he had to do a good drive to win, but at the same time, I don't think the drama and the stakes were as high as he was maybe making out. There was a really good thing that the team did though, which is after the race, they did a little video that they made in the debrief, and they talked to the strategy guy for a little while, and they were like asking him some questions before Lewis came in. They're like, so what happened? What do you think is going to happen? He's like, well, even if I'd put Lewis on the hard tyres instead of the mediums, the outcome would have been the same. So I'm going to tell him that. And they're like, what do you think he'll say? And he'll go, well, he'll probably say, why did you put me on mediums for 58 laps? And then he'll probably, hopefully give me a hug, and then we'll see what happens. That'd be the best case scenario. So then it sort of cuts to like Lewis walking in, and he just bursts into the room. He's got a bottle of champagne. He shakes it up and sprays the guy down for about 20 seconds. He's like, fuck you. That's putting me on the mediums for 58 laps. And, I really enjoyed it. That was probably my highlight of the race, actually.
Yeah, it's great. So good. I mean, that I don't think even Hamilton's like, this is the greatest race of my career, unless he has said that and I've missed it. He
said something like it was one of the hardest ones, meaning had to manage the tires, I guess, pressure from Verstappen. I think I was watching the highlights, and the first time that he complains about the tires or questions the strategy is like 21. That's 21 out of 78. So he was talking himself into what a mistake this was pretty early. Even though the team told him, this is fine, there's no problems, you don't have to worry at all. There's no reason to worry at all. And he was like, nah, I think there is. And then, again, I'm not saying it was easy, but I think the race lead was pretty comfortable. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. How do you feel about Max Verstappen? Mm-hmm. Would a different driver or a perhaps better driver or more experienced driver been able to make that overtake?
I think one of the problems is the cars. Vettel was saying that he couldn't really challenge anyone because he couldn't get enough heat into his tires to wear them out. So his tires actually held up pretty well. If anyone can get a move done, I'm sure Verstappen can. And, if anything, he's over eager, not under eager, which is not really a thing.
Yep.
I don't think Bottas was going to challenge Lewis here. So he would have been happy with P2. He ended up in third after the pit lane incident, but that all comes out in the wash. That's the other thing. I mean, all this talk of the run of 1-2 finishes, it should have been another 1-2 here. And this was the one that people were circling like, oh, please give us some variance. Someone do something here. And it didn't happen. So that doesn't augur well at all for the rest of the season. They might sweep the year. They literally might win every race this year.
Yeah, hey, it wouldn't be surprising. We're maybe coming into some races now where reliability starts to become a bit more of a factor. We've had enough races now that we go to Canada.
Upgrades from other people.
Yeah, and they've got to. That's the good thing, I suppose, is that Mercedes will have to keep developing. However, maybe not, because they're so quick and there doesn't seem to be much pressure down the field. One of my clear memories from this Monaco 2019 race was that it seemed like within 8 laps that Daniel Ricciardo, who was then running in 6th, he'd made a relatively good start and was the best of the rest, was suddenly 16 seconds behind whoever was in 5th at that point. immediately when everybody was racing almost at full pelt, and then just before they started backing off and kind of managing the race, the front five were so much faster than anybody else that they were down the road, like unstoppable, which, I mean, thank goodness it was at least a track like this where it should be relatively slow. But even here, the rest of the field was really far behind. And you look at the distance in the end, you have Carlos Sainz down 53 seconds off the leader in sixth. Around Monaco, I wouldn't necessarily say that should be okay. It could have been far worse, I suppose, but we still have this massive power problem. And at least it looks like Renault have a qualifying button now, a party mode, as I think you've said, which I think has just become the nomenclature for make the car go really fast in qualifying, which is great. Party mode, huzzah. But,
I guess the hope is that if Renault can qualify better, they might give themselves a better chance of getting into the points. Instead of qualifying 13th, 14th, 15th and struggling to get 11th, they might be able to qualify 11th and then get into the 8th, 9th, 10th, in those minor places for the points. They really need them. And Monaco, Ricciardo was on track because he qualified alongside Magnussen in 5th and 6th, except that he got past Magnussen. He was one of the only drivers to get the jump on anyone at the start, except for, I think Kubica overtook someone by cutting across, which is like, I don't know how you get away with that, but it doesn't matter. Running in 5th, that was like, he hasn't run in 5th any time this year. He hasn't even looked like running in 5th at any time this year. So it should have been, party for Renault as well. They just got screwed by pitting behind that safety car that Leclerc caused. And, that should be the right call, except in hindsight, of course, it wasn't at all.
No. Let's talk about Leclerc for a bit then, because qualifying was an absolute disaster. Yeah. Right? He's sitting in the car going, hey, should we go out again? They're like, no, you're fine, mate. Everything's totally fine. And if you can trust one person right now, it's a Ferrari strategist. They know exactly what is going on.
The joke about that, before we get into the race, the joke about that is that before qualifying, Ferrari held a special session and they brought out their strategists and gave the press a masterclass. Here's how you run qualifying in Monaco. And it's like, oh man, like of all the hubris to do that right before you screw everything up royally. And then it set up his mood for the race. And he came out of qualifying having, qualified P15, or he was going to start from P15 or P16. And he said, I'm going to either crash or I'm going to win. That's, and coming from 15, my money was always on him crashing, and crash he did.
Yeah, it was, he made a couple of good overtakes, and then
he did.
Went to overtake, whoever he was trying to overtake, I can't remember.
Hulkenberg, he spun.
That's right.
Yep.
Yes, and he hit the wall. It doesn't look like he hit Hulkenberg upon, I don't know what the conventional wisdom is now on it, but he definitely clips the last part of that barrier. He almost gets it exactly right, and then just carries it a little bit too much speed, doesn't get the turn right, and clips the barrier and spins. It was, you got to pick your spot, right? And this is the third time he'd gone there, and was just going to try and make it work.
Yeah, he couldn't. He was predetermined though, and that's why it didn't work. Yeah. And then the problem was that he'd already gone past the pit entry lane. Then it turns out that he's got a puncture, but he still guns it. And then the tire rips itself apart. The flapping tire rips his car apart. And everyone was saying they could see that as he was doing it, like, just go slower. Just, you're going way too fast. This is going to end up biting you in the ass. And then his car was so, the performance just wasn't there. He came out after the pitting in P20 and he was asking the team, can I push? And it's like, dude, you're in P20 at Monaco and you've still got this attitude that you're going to come out and win the race. Like, that is mental. And his car couldn't do it and they retired it. So, I just don't understand what the value of that is. And I know people could say, like, yeah, well, what's the value of finishing 12th? I'm like, well, it's 8 better, and you finish the race instead of DNFing. Instead of sitting on the sidelines for the next 60 laps, you get to finish the race. How about that?
Yeah, it's proving to be a very tumultuous time for him at Ferrari.
Yeah, Ferrari needs to just Men in Black, just wipe his mind clean and then just start again.
Yeah, there were very unverified, poorly sourced rumours that his management is shopping him around.
Wow.
Which is, if you can't see development changing at Ferrari, if you think that I would do the same, possibly. If I was, Leclerc, part of Team Leclerc, I'd be looking at Ferrari going like, are you guys going to get any better this year? Because I don't know. And Vettel seems totally secure in that number one position again.
Yeah.
The team is about Sebastian Vettel.
I wonder if that's
right
just
now.
about giving him some leverage, though, against them to say, look, it's okay to give Sebastian, a little bit extra than me, or give him preferential treatment when we're up against it. But I also need results, and you're not giving me any results at the moment. So maybe he's just like, look, if you're not going to give me what I need, I'm going to leave. It can't be the Vettel show. It needs to be the Vettel first and Leclerc second show.
Yeah, it can't just be only Vettel. That's a good point. Speaking of having to make two go into one, essentially, is Verstappen and Bottas. Unsafe release from Bottas. It was dicey, right? It was real dicey. Yes, from Verstappen.
Yeah. I mean, it was a valid point from the commentators that when you look down that pit lane, and there's so many people everywhere, you can't really see anything at all. So, I mean, some people were saying 5 seconds was pretty lenient, and I think given that it dropped him off the podium, really, I don't know that that's too lenient, but I think there was a little bit of leniency shown given how hectic the pit lane was, how much of an effect it has at Monaco in particular. If it was someone like Spa, you might say, yeah, man, maybe 10 seconds is a bit more appropriate. But I mean, it's 5 seconds is like the whole lap is only 1 minute 10. Like it's not a long lap. So I thought it was fine. I didn't have a problem with the penalty.
I mean, it did do damage to Bottas. He had to come in again.
He had to pit again,
which is a shame. But it all worked out for Bottas. Could have been a 1-2, I suppose, for Mercedes if that incident hadn't really happened, which would have been nice. Part of me kind of likes the punchiness of it, that Verstappen didn't kind of just or leave it or pull over him more. But then I look at the highlights again and I'm like, oh, there's nowhere to, like usually the pit lanes you can kind of comfortably fit 2 cars, but there's nowhere for the engineers to get out of the way here. So it's actually incredibly dangerous.
Well, but I mean, also, you can't just not go. You can't just sit in the pits and just go, well, I'll just wait and see if there's definitely no cars coming or even any chance of it. It's just one of those things that happens when 2 cars that are racing very close to each other pit. The second guy out is always going to be at a disadvantage, or they need to go side by side, or they're going to crash. It's just, it's pretty simple stuff. It's just racing and whatever.
Yeah, and whatever, man. Just whatever. Is there anybody else you want to call out? What about the Toro Rossos?
Oh, Toro Rossos did really good, and I'm pretty sure both Red Bulls and both Toro Rossos finished in the points, so Honda will be very, very happy. But yeah, really good performance from them, and Albon is doing surprisingly well, especially in the last few races. I also wanted to call out McLaren, who came away looking really good, because, I mean, obviously, it should have been Haas, and it should have been Ricciardo, and even Hülkenberg in those places that that were filled. The vacuum was just filled with Toro Rossos and McLarens, but McLaren are looking really racy. And I mean, the big story about them is what a turnaround it is, because they were really the backmarkers last year. And now that Williams have cemented their spot as backmarkers for this year, they must be looking at McLaren and licking their lips, going, "Yes, please, we want a miraculous rise from the ashes like Lazarus, like that, please. We'll have one of those."
Yeah, well, it takes a Carlos Sainz Jr., who I have so much time for now. He's just got his head down and he's just working. Thanks, Drive to Survive. Drift to Survive.
And he treats himself to an ice cream after qualifying, which is fun.
So fun.
Just seems to be a guy who's just enjoying his racing, which is so good, because I think he was a bit down when he got dropped by Renault, and now he's laughing, really. Yeah,
I wonder if there's something in the mood you can see something from the mood of some of these drivers, that they know that this season's a bit of a bogey season, that Mercedes has run away with it, and it's all about cementing your spot in the team, building a foundation to launch from next season, and seeing development kind of go in the right way. I get that feeling similarly about Daniel Ricciardo, that even though he's annoyed when things don't go right, he still seems pretty energetic and feels pretty good about being at Renault, and he set himself some markers that I think he's judging his own performance by. And I would argue it's the same for Albon and for Sainz and for even like Lando Norris. I don't have the same feeling about Haas. It feels like Grosjean and Magnussen are both kind of like plugging along still and waiting for it to happen. They've been also rans for the last few years, and they haven't quite hit that critical
They're all looking at each other
yet
to make it happen. All the other teams, it's like,
Yeah.
well, Ricciardo's going to make it happen, or Sainz is going to make it happen, or Matteo Binotto is going to make it happen. Hasn't really worked out for Ferrari so much. But at Haas, it's like, who is going to make it happen there? And it's hard to point to anyone who's actually going to lift.
Yeah, I'd love an upstart at Haas for next year. You know, whether it's, I'd like to keep Magnussen in the sport, but Grosjean could shift off, and I'd love to see someone totally fresh and someone totally new there. Wow, harsh on Grosjean this early in the season.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Well, I don't know that there's much else to talk about from the race. That was pretty much it, I think. I think that the only other thing might be Kubica coming away looking pretty good. I think there were some question marks about his physical ability to turn through the hairpin, especially, and just the mobility that it was going to test his, what would you call it? The flex and twist of his wrist to get through the race. But he got through, and I think he was, I don't know, based on some of the things that he was saying, I got the feeling that he was really like, "How you like me now? You know, like I can do this. If I can get through this race, I can get through any race." He still needs a good car. He's still getting outpaced and I think outclassed a little bit by Russell, which is a worry. But it's a bit of a relief to have this one past him, and he'll be looking forward to better things coming down the line.
We desperately need a race that just gets totally upended. We need We need rain in Canada, something like that, just to test the mettle of some of these drivers that I haven't quite seen enough.
They need a magic,
I feel like
a magic tire strategy that gives them an actual performance. Well, not even an advantage, just level pegging, and they need to find themselves in the midfield somehow on the right tires against people who are on the wrong tires, just so that we can see a bit of Kubica magic. Because I'm getting the feeling right now that not going to make it through the year, or certainly not another year.
Yeah, the Hamilton's drive feels like the only real struggle that's paid off that I can really point to this season. Of wow, that was a difficult thing to do, and it was a strategy that actually paid dividends. I'm hoping we get some more kind of tumultuous racing where there is a contra strategy that actually does something interesting and causes some havoc, because it seems like everybody even the top, we say 5, but it is 6 if you include Gasly as well, that just they seem to be following each other around a bit. Everybody's kind of happy with the status quo, maybe, which is a bit odd. I find it a little odd.
I'm just looking forward to Canada because I like the Canada track, and then it's one of those early morning races where you get up early, watch the race, and then have a shower, get dressed, and go to Pancake Parlor for some pancakes. So
I want Pancake
just
Parlor.
looking forward to that. Zach, let's get into the fantasy focus. Let's move on from the race and get into the fantasy focus. Still an open invitation to anyone that wants to send us a theme. I promise we'll drop it into the show. But good result from us. If you need a shining light from this week, good result from us in the fantasy, hey?
Yeah, I sat in the car driving up to Sky and for about 25 minutes looked at my team and questioned everything, questioned all the drivers, all the teams. And I was like, guys, what's the deal? What are you going to do here? Who's going to put their hand up? And I made some changes. Some Mercedes-focused changes. I spent the wad on some Mercedes. But then it's, as you rightly pointed out last week, it's very difficult then to fill your team with literally anybody else. You know, they're asking me to put F2 drivers in for negative money. I have to pay to make it up. Put my own million in.
Whatever changes you made, they seem to have worked. I think, but we both had very good weeks in the fantasy. Both of us jumping up. We're both in the top 50 now, which is nice.
You overtook me.
And it's not 50 out of 52 people. There's nearly 90 people, I think, 85, 86, something like that. So, you know, we're doing okay. And, more weeks like that will make me feel good, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Who did well for this race? Let me have a look.
Yeah, I was just about to do the exact same thing.
Top team, Win Dixie Wrecked Come Quickly by Trip Tonight. Great name, don't know what it means. Send us a tweet explaining that one. But you jumped 9 spots in the league rank, apparently. So you blitzed it. As did down 4th place this week, Tangelo Racing, Tony Saint. This is the manager. He jumped 11 places this week. So this was the week where people were on the charge.
Making moves.
Still up there. Actually down 2 spots this week in the league. Trains. And mostly lots of people holding station for the rest of it.
Okay. Good train pun.
It's either big moves or holding a station from most people this week. So if you haven't done it before, we're on the fantasygp.com league. I will tweet out the fantasy details so for you to join the league, because we're going to call this out every week for a while, and we haven't called it out for a little while. But join the league, have some fun, make a funny name, and we'll read it out on the show. And we'll also look at some weekly results so that it doesn't get too much like, but I joined halfway through the year, you know?
Yeah, no, it's all about who performs well every week, and when you string those together, you make a name for yourself. So it's also a really nice. I get the little email on Friday from Fantasy GP being like, "Hey, don't forget to sort your team out, get those predictions in." And I was like, "Yes!" Every time I'm like, "That's right, Formula One this weekend, woo!" It's a nice little mood lifter, and it asks you good things to predict, like who's going to win, who's going to put the fastest lap, and then there's always a little bonus question of like, how many places will Carlos Sainz Jr. make up this race? Those kinds of things. So yeah, it's good.
No, it is fun. I do like it. It's a fun thing to just sit around, and if you watch practice or if you just want to get in the mood on a Friday afternoon while you're at work, pull up your phone, put in your little special bonus predictions, and pull in those extra bonus points. That's the secret to my success. Zach, shall we get into a super quiz?
Yeah.
Here it comes.
We will accept a couple of questions. Should one only win one? Would one want to have won that one in round one?
Can you repeat the question?
Hopefully my voice holds out. Zach, you're holding all the cards this week. You are the dealer. You are the chips. You are the...
Dungeon Master.
Yeah, Dungeon. I'm keeping it Monaco focused though, Dungeon Master.
Oh, shit.
You're the crap stealer. You're the pit boss. Just crap. You're the...
Who was the casino owner in Ocean's 11? What was the actor's name?
Mark Strong.
What's his face? What?
Isn't it Mark Strong in the first one?
It might be. Yeah. And you can be Clooney. I'll be Mark Strong.
Oh, and you could have been Pitt. You could have been Matt Damon. You could have been anybody.
Matt Damon. Well, Rod.
Yeah?
Instead, it's actually quite interesting. Like Bellagio, that's kind of Italian. This week, we're going to do the Scuderia Ferrari Numero Due quiz, which is a focus on the number 2 drivers at Ferrari, because we've spoken a lot about Charles Leclerc. So, Rod, are you ready for the Scuderia Ferrari Numero Due quiz?
I'm both ready, and I'm also backup ready as a number 2.
Ah, lovely. Well, since the year 2000, who is the only Ferrari driver to have gone from number 1 to number 2 in his career?
At Ferrari?
At Ferrari, yes.
Kimi Räikkönen.
Bang on. Kimi Räikkönen. How about that, right? Poor guy. Goes from number 1 to number 2.
Yeah.
Won the World Championship with them as well, so...
He's only got himself to blame, but yeah, I mean, you know, at least he was the number 1 for a while.
Yeah, now, Rod, he wasn't number 2 just once. He was number 2 twice. Who were his number 1s?
Felipe Massa and Fernando Alonso. No?
Not Sebastian Vettel?
Oh, Sebastian Vettel. Well, you could go there, I guess, as well. You don't think there's 3 number 1s?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think Massa was his number 1. Oof.
I guess you could argue they were on level pegging, just that Kimi drove like a number 2. All right.
Yes,
you?
take
You're
that,
correct.
Kimi Räikkönen.
Very good.
No, I reckon it's all good points. I reckon
we're here for a good time.
Yeah, I didn't know you were such a Massa fan, Rod. Who knew? I thought you were all Kimi. I thought Kimi was your number 1. Now he's your number 2. What a shame.
Well, I'm becoming more of a realist lately.
Well, you know who's far more than a realist, a massive optimist, and achieved on all that optimism? Michael Schumacher. He had 3 number 2s beside him through his Ferrari career. Can you name them all?
I mean, Felipe Massa, Rubens Barrichello. Are you talking career at Ferrari specifically?
Yes, career at Ferrari. I don't know his. Thingy team.
Was it Mika Salo?
Mika Salo.
Did we go earlier?
No, Mika Salo did race at Ferrari when he was there. I didn't put him on the list
Mika
specifically.
Salo replaced Schumacher when he was injured, but I think the answer you're looking for is Eddie Irvine.
That is the answer I'm looking for.
Got it.
I nailed it, mate. I totally Eddie Irvine is one of those drivers that just not in my mind at all. Like, just completely dropped out. And that's what inspired this quiz, because I was thinking back through for like my time watching Ferrari and Formula 1, just being like, everybody can name the world champions throughout history of Ferrari, and Michael Schumacher obviously dominates that period, but like, he was for over ages. Like, surely it wasn't just Barrichello and Massa. But
so quick anecdote about Eddie Irvine. Played number 2 to Michael Schumacher, as you pointed out. In the 99 season, Schumacher crashed into a wall and broke his leg and was out of contention for a couple of races, out of contention for the championship, but comes back later in the year. And Irvine, he's the spearhead of their attack. And then he wins the race with the assistance of Michael Schumacher. And during the press conference, Eddie Irvine says, how depressing is that? Michael Schumacher is the best number 1 driver in the world, and he's also the best number 2 driver in the world.
Oh, I wish I'd had that in that quiz. Although, you have somewhat...
oh, no, sorry.
usurped my second question, next question, which is, speaking of Irvine, what was his best championship finish whilst at Ferrari?
I'll have to say 99 then.
Yeah, he came second because Michael Schumacher broke his leg. That's right. And Irvine was like, I guess I'll win the races then. It is funny. You know, when you go back through Eddie Irvine's career, I don't even really know how he ended up at Ferrari. Like, it just
doesn't make any sense. Like, he was Irish, and there was Eddie Jordan running a team. He's running an Irish team, basically. And then he doesn't... it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is really weird. Well, Rod, this is my second last question. Mm-hmm. Amazingly, both Massa and Barrichello have the same number of career wins. I find that incredible.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But who has more pole positions?
Oh, bloody hell. The thing is that Rubens... I know that Rubens is up there for races contended, which gives him more of a shot. He might have been at Ferrari longer than Massa was during that glory phase, but having said that... Oh boy, Schumacher took most of those
yeah, Schumacher he gobbled up all those points and those poles.
You've got Rubens at Brawn that good year. So, yeah, I'll go Rubens.
It's Felipe Massa.
Oh,
16. Yeah, those good years at Ferrari, Felipe. He had that good season, right? And he got some poles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He was quicker on qualifying days. Rubens, Barrichello, interestingly, Barrichello didn't have as nearly a good a season as Jenson Button did at Brawn that year, which was interesting. And I was going back through that year, actually, and it was surprising that, like, Brawn dominated the first, 6 or 7 races, and then they really fall off.
Did it?
And then they come back and they kind of come back in the second half of the year, and Barrichello has a better finish to the year. But Button has a really odd second half to his season, where it just kind of like, there's lots of 4ths and 5ths and 9ths, and then it's just, but he seemingly won every race in the first half. So,
how
interesting.
Weird.
Yeah. Rod, last but not least, a bit of a funny one, which I just really wanted to more know your opinion. Who would you want to be the number 2 driver for if you were at Ferrari? Of all the Ferrari drivers, number 1s and number 2s, who would you like to support and be their rear gunner, their co-pilot, their wingman, their, I don't know, the companion to Doctor Who? Who do you want to be?
Your wingman was sufficient.
Yeah.
Are we talking
Who's your
all
Han
time?
Solo?
All time?
Yeah, all time. All time. Ferrari drivers.
Boy,
why not?
Man, my heart wants to say, Niki Lauda, hey. My heart wants to go with Niki.
He give you the truth every week, right?
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, Niki would just be so much fun, just besides the winning and everything. Who else drove it? Oh, I mean, Jean Alesi. I've always had this weird affinity for him without really knowing too much about him. But Jean Alesi drove it for Ferrari, just the right look. He just looks like a Ferrari driver, right? Who else is there? Schumacher would be intense, I think. He'd just play mind games, and I would just end up in the corner sucking my thumb, so that's no good. Alonso maybe, just for the sake of it.
Yeah, just to be there.
I don't know. Let's stick with Niki. Let's go with Niki. I'll grow my hair long and buy him a beer, and he'll be fine.
Yep, that's the right answer. Well done.
Okay, great.
Double
I got
points
the
for
right
that.
answer to that subjective question.
That is the end of the Scuderia Ferrari numero 2 quiz. You've done very, very well. It did feel a little bit like I'd written a quiz where you just name Ferrari drivers, and I reflected on that as I was reading it out. But you know what? I think it's a nice summary of what it's like to be number 2.
That's okay. And if you're a Ferrari fan and you're not having such a great time right now, you probably need something like that. Just remember the good days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Zach, it's time for us to wrap up the show. We did the race talk. We did the quiz. We did the thing. We won the points. Now it's time for us to just have one quick reflection before we go. You got anything?
I do. I do have a reflection, Rod, which is that I think it's about time that we stop being so mean to Valtteri Bottas and stop saying that he has had this massive transformation. You know, I think that we were very hard on him when he came kind of just out of the blue to Mercedes. He wasn't necessarily the best driver going around at that moment. But he's done this inspiring thing of just, he's like, I know I'm number 2, right? But I'm going to worm my way into more like a 1.5 because this team wants dominance and they want 1s and 2s. So instead of doing what Eddie Irvine did, which is finish 5th half the time when Michael Schumacher was winning, Bottas is like, no, I'm not going to have any of that. I'm not just going to drift around and be told that I'm an also-ran. I am going to try and win these races whilst not doing anything super disruptive. You know, I'm not going to crash into my teammate. And I think there's a chance that Valtteri Bottas is going to have a long career at Mercedes. They might not dump him, and that he will, if Hamilton decides to take a break or move away from Formula One or change teams or retire, that Bottas might become the number 1 driver at Mercedes. Yeah,
spoiler alert, Hamilton's not going to do that. But I think one of the nice things that people have tried to say about Bottas is that he was always good, and then he showed up at Mercedes and he was not good. And then rather than this being the 2.0 version, that he has gone back to the 1.0 version where he was good. So, I mean, it's a bit of a backhanded compliment, but I see how they get there. I was the one saying when Bottas went there that I wanted to see what he could do. I was disappointed that he didn't do very well, and I thought, oh, gee, maybe I had it wrong. But I was the guy who was like, I'm not upset that Bottas got the chance, because, you know, I was hoping that he would take it to him the way that Rosberg did, but it wasn't to be for many a year. But now, yeah. I thought you were going to say that he deserves his credit for setting himself the goal of delivering 1-2s. I still think he's hoping to win. I think if you ask him, if he had his preference, he would win. But yeah, he's definitely helping that team to a fantastic season. There's no question.
Yeah. And, you know, by sheer luck, he might end up winning the championship by accident.
Oh, man, imagine that. Imagine the meltdown that Hamilton's going to have. Imagine there won't be enough hats in the world for him to throw to vent all of that anger. Like, it's just not possible.
When are they going to push him too far that they're going to leave him out on tyres that they've swapped on lap 2, and that they'll disintegrate on the second last lap, and Bottas will just be like, I guess I'll take the win and you'll get no points and I'll get all 25 plus fastest lap?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What a European season we have ahead of us. I wanted to drop my final thought of the week, which was, poor Fernando Alonso not had a good time at the Indy and, didn't qualify. I don't know if anyone's been following this story. Most of you probably heard people talking about it, that he couldn't qualify. The car was not good enough. He had some problems. At first the headline was Fernando Alonso fails to qualify for Indy 500. Then the story became the absolute shit show that the team had put on, painting the car the wrong color, then taking the chassis away to repaint it. They forgot to design a steering wheel, which, come on guys, it's pretty fundamental. A crash didn't help. Just all these little things that just added up to him not even qualifying. And this is like, I don't even know how many cars qualify for the Indy 500. Maybe it might be 500. Maybe that's where the 500 comes from.
Yeah,
but they're like 502 cars enter and 500 qualify, and he was one of the 2 that got dropped out. Yeah. Some crazy number, but he missed out, and he'll have to wait till next year if he wants to try again at the tilt for the Triple Crown. Not going to happen this year.
More like Triple Clown.
Boy, more like Dipple Clown. Am I right?
Yeah.
Mine's as good as yours.
You are
so
right.
Cool. And yeah, so, I mean, this is the story that I think, I'm just not sure that the story has momentum. I'm not sure people are interested enough in him getting the Triple Crown that they'll wait around for another year. I feel like he'll completely disappear from people's consciousness, pop back up again in 12 months and be like, hey guys, I'm still here. And they'll be like, whatever. So that's my prediction for what's going to happen. Note it down. I'll replay this in 12 months when that happens. And no one's excited about Alonso entering the 500 next year.
Yeah, it's funny. I was convinced that Jenson Button would stay around Formula One for longer than he did, like as an advisor or stuff. And then it's like, oh no, he's got other things going on. He likes racing around in other cars and other formats, and he's got his life and he seems happy. Fernando Alonso needs this. I don't think he thinks his career is over. So I will not be surprised if he's back in Formula One next year with someone, or that he is an advisor, like he's on the team, on the management team or something.
Yeah.
And he finds his way into running either a Formula E team or being team principal somewhere. So we'll see.
Had an interesting thought listening to Daniel Ricciardo, who popped up on Nico Rosberg's podcast this week as well. When Nico asked him, have you thought about your post-Formula One career? What's your life purpose, basically? And he was like, man, no one's ever asked me that, at least not so bluntly. Because Nico's obviously now like Mr. Green energy. That's his, want to save the planet. And then I was thinking, yeah, most drivers probably don't think about that. And then they retire from Formula One and they're like, well, what am I going to do? I've been like, Formula One's been the thing for my entire adult life and childhood. The only one I can think of is Lewis, who has that obvious career as fashion designer and rapper extraordinaire. But it's hard to think of anyone else who's like, yeah, I've got this backup career planned, Does anyone spring to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think the problem with Formula One especially is that there's not a lot of media jobs immediately in the sport. It doesn't take that many people. It doesn't feel like there's that many to, like, that you would be like there's no commentary room really. I don't think right away, because all the broadcasters seem to have a pretty simple setup. And then they use real journalists the rest of the time for interviewing and those kinds of things, because they tend to work for like automotive magazines and news organizations. So you don't get, like you do in AFL and like football here and in other sports where it's like, look, here's just X random, not world champion, just random participant from some random time. Like, I don't imagine that Perez will be on any media team in in Europe unless he's on the. He could be on the. Maybe he'll become part of the Mexican broadcast. I don't know, but it's I can't really think of anyone who's got a career planned immediately after Formula One. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo will just do the beer brewing stuff that he's doing, the Blue Rock beer or whatever it's called. Oh
yeah, I heard about that. I haven't had any.
Yeah.
It's interesting though.
It is.
Well, yeah, I guess we've got that all ahead of us, and we'll find out. All will be revealed in the next 20 years or so. Zach, it's been a delight talking to you. I want everyone to follow us on Twitter this week, if you're not already. So we're at Super License. And if you're not in the Facebook group, you can search for Super License Universe and join the fun in there before Canada, and we'll be doing all kinds of fun stuff. The Facebook group is it's a cozy little group full of people who are passionate, which is good. And what else should we plug? Oh, if you haven't joined the Super License Club, you can go to the superlicense.com.au website, click on the club link, which will give you more information about what the club is. And if you join at a $5 a month or higher level, you get access to all of our exclusive members-only podcasts, including our review episode about the Netflix series Drive to Survive, as aforementioned on the show. Zach, I feel like I've done my diligence there. Do you want to bring us home with something pithy and smart and funny?
Pithy, smart and funny. Gee, don't put the bar too high, mate. Well,
I just feel like sometimes I can put you on the spot and magic happens.
Yeah, no, maybe not so much right now. All I can say is that I had my preview breakfast. As my last meal away on my holiday in the Merewood, I think is what it was, in the Lake District. I had incredible pancakes, and I just thought to myself, you know what? I wish I was sharing these pancakes with Rod in 1 week's time after watching the Canadian Grand Prix. So I will raise my maple syrup jug to you when I eat my pancakes post-Canadian Grand Prix for what will be a late evening dinner. And I hope you enjoy yours, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you after that.
Thank you. I will. I popped up on Facebook not long ago. You know, when you get those 1 year ago, this thing happened. Me and Poppy down at Pancake Parlor having a great old time. So let's all put our pancakes. Let's all have pancakes after the race, and let's all raise our maple syrup. Put your maple syrup out for the Canadian Grand Prix. It's gonna be a fun one. It's gonna be just over a week away. So enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the lead up to the race. See you on Fantasy. Follow us on Twitter. All the rest of the good things. And until next time, my name's been Rodney.
And my name's been Zach.
Thanks for listening. I'll catch you after Canada. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, yeah.
Got to roll. Hi friends, Rod here. Let me ask you a question. Have you seen the Netflix series Drive to Survive? Do you want to hear me and Zach record a special podcast talking just about it? Well, you can. All you need to do is go to superlicense.com.au and join the Superlicense Club at the $5 a month level. And you'll hear us talk all about it. Things like this.
It's not really about who's going to win the championship.
It's really like a 30 for 30 season, except every single episode is just about Formula One.
To see Esteban Ocon going through the paces and seeing him with his eyes closed doing the entire track, with just a little steering wheel in front of him, I felt incredibly close, probably closer than ever before to a Formula One driver.
That is why you get a filmmaker to make these and not a racer, not a race director, you know?
And we've got two great drivers, but Max Verstappen is magic. Oh my God.
All that and many, 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 many minutes more. All you need to do is go to superlicense.com.au, click on the club link and join the Superlicense Club at the $5 a month level or above, and we will unlock all of the episodes of our special members-only podcast called Drift, including the episode covering Netflix Drive to Survive.
Why don't we have that all the time?
Yeah.